do anything. There we go. Here we go. Finally. Alright, looks like we are live. So, looks like we do have the video capture device up. So, let me know if anyone's here. If you hear anything. So... Where's my chat? Where is my chat? Alright. Alright, so Candy says black screen. Okay. Alright, so I'm trying to use OPS for the first time, so I am seeing I can see something here. So if I drag it over there, that didn't do anything, did it? Alright. Alright, so trying to play with new software that I didn't practice with first, so let's see what I did. Oh, I lost it. Okay. Okay. You see anything now, Candy? Or no? Oh, now I went to... Alright, my stream health went to yellow, which I don't know what that means. So, there's 3 people here. Thank you guys for coming. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties right now. I'm trying to use OPS for the first time, and I am failing kind of miserably at it. So, I apologize. So, let me see what I did here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, David, I see that you're here. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get it to see something, and I don't know what I did. So, let's see. Okay. Why? Maybe I'll try putting the camera back on again. Yes, we'll re-add it. Yeah, I realized that Jeremy was live too. For some reason or other, it said that it was scheduled for 9 p.m. Pacific, which I am not in the Pacific time zone, so yeah, so this might be kind of low. I just realized that. So let me, which is probably good because I'm figuring out the camera, and so let me see here. Just go. Did that do something? You guys see something now? Alright, did you guys see anything with that? I think that may have... that may have done something. So, it still says I'm live. But it doesn't show here. It says delay there. Can you guys see anything? Got video. Okay, yes, good. Alright, so I figured it out. Oh, it's not full screen? Okay. Alright, let me see what we can do here. Is that better? Is that screen better now? So, okay. Alright. So, alright, so it looks like we've got 5 people watching. So, I thank you guys for coming. Let me know if the video is any better. So I do apologize for... okay, good. So I do apologize for the delay. I had to do some on-the-fly learning. I thought I had the OPS set up correctly, but I didn't. So we're good to go now. So thank you guys for being here. Yeah, so basically what happened was I had it set up for 9 p.m. thinking YouTube would default to my time zone, but it defaulted to 9 p.m. Pacific time. So, unfortunately, I think some people are going to show up about 3 hours from now and not have a video. So, I'm going to try to post links up and say, hey, it didn't show up. So again, I apologize for a little bit of a delay, but let's go ahead and get started with the topic. So, I'd like to thank Candy for being here, as well as David Gilkison, as well as Jason Brady. So, thank you guys for coming. Anyone else who's not in the chat, I do appreciate you guys coming along as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to talk a little bit kind of about the things we can learn from saltwater and freshwater. So I went to my first auction this weekend, and I found it rather interesting to see how the freshwater side of the hobby basically does the auction. It was kind of an interesting dynamic. And basically went all day, went from 10:30, and I left about 4 or 5 o'clock, and they still had a couple hundred bags left. So it really took off. So with that being said, I did get quite a few fish. Those will be coming out in a later video. But it kind of drove me to kind of talk about this topic a little bit and see what's give you guys a little bit of a peek into the saltwater side a little bit, and then kind of compare the two, because there's a lot you can learn between the two. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So one of the things I kind of found really interesting is basically like how people procure fish. In the saltwater side, it's really, you have basically your mom and pop fish store. There's really not a lot of Petcos out there or big box stores that sell the saltwater fish. Well, basically, you pretty much on the freshwater side, you have a lot of different aspects of it. You've got your Petco, PetSmart. We have a local chain here called the Meyer, and those actually sell fish as well as like Walmart. So it's a very different supply chain when it comes to the freshwater side. And then if you go further down, I mean, the one thing I kind of wrote down, I wrote some notes down before we started. Is you can get them online. The shipping is a little bit different, saltwater versus freshwater, where you can ship them. Saltwater is all overnight, while the freshwater side you can take a day or two and they seem to get there. So that's really, I think that's kind of an advantage to the freshwater side, is that the shipping's a lot cheaper. All the saltwater I've ever ordered online, it's been overnight, so it's pretty expensive. And then the one really interesting thing, and I really kind of like this about the freshwater side, and I don't think you can do it with the saltwater side as well much, because you can't keep the fish really in a bag all day like that. You'd have to really pack them with oxygen and do things like that. And I don't think the demand would be as much for it, but it would be the auction. I really like the auction. So I think it's one of those things, like if you have fish that you're sort of done with, you can get rid of them at the auction. You can take them, bag them to the auction. You may not get a lot of money for them, but I kind of found that to be a very interesting aspect. So that was a lot of actually I had a lot of fun there, but it was a really cool aspect of that where you have fish where you can get rid of it. That happens in the saltwater side a little bit with corals, but really it's kind of a it's more of a sale. It's not really an auction. It's really, there's vendors set up with tanks. If any of you went to Aquashella, it's very much like that. It's just all coral vendors. They have tanks set up with, I'm sure you guys have seen them. And then I'm going to go on now to kind of the breeding side of it, where on the club scene on the saltwater side, it's really not a lot of breeding going on. There's some. But there's like maybe, a club will have one or two guys who breed clownfish, or, maybe you have the guy who's bred the saltwater angelfish in your club, who knows. But on the freshwater side, it's really hardcore focused on that. There's breeders award programs. The last stream we talked about the MBI a little bit. That's really the only thing in town in terms of freshwater breeding award programs. But every freshwater club has one, which I think is pretty good. So, it really promotes the captive aquaculture of the fish. And then, and also kind of in that realm too, it's really talking about the corals too. The corals are really what drive the saltwater club, more or less, and then the freshwater club is really more driven by the fish, which is kind of a, corals in a lot of ways. I relate to plants in the freshwater hobby. They're kind of the same person. The guy who's really into plants is sort of the same guy who's really into corals. So they're pretty much the same person. It's a different medium, but it's the same mindset. It's the same, not the same techniques, but I'm not going to, I'll be careful because I don't want to say that corals are animals, or corals are animals, not plants. But, it's the same kind of person. Where, I'm more of a saltwater fish person. So that's really where I land on this. So let's go ahead now. And one thing that I really like about the freshwater side of the hobby is a lot of the species location. So you buy a fish, and you know that the species location of those particular fish are, where they are. There's killifish people who know the mile marker of where their fish are at. But on the saltwater side, you don't know. There is some effort towards that. If you go to a saltwater store, the Quality Marine stickers, you can click on the barcode, and it will show you basically the location of the fish, who caught it. Say John from Fiji caught it, at this location. But that's really the only place that has that. So that's really I think that's something that the freshwater side really brings that the saltwater side really could bring to it. So that's really one thing. And then the last thing I wrote down here is technology. The saltwater side seems to me, I'm going to speak for the United States now, it seems to be more brings a lot of technology. Things like the Apex, stuff like that have come out on the saltwater side long before they've been on the freshwater side. I think an Apex is a good product, even for a freshwater fish room. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I wouldn't go out and buy the $800 one. The Apex Junior is $250, and then you can get the temperature probes and all of that, and it'll make it worth your while. So I think that's one thing that the saltwater side really does have, that could be brought over to the freshwater side. So one of the things I kind of want to bring over time to the channel is there's a lot of learning that can be done on both sides. As I go through this, I've started in saltwater, so I kind of did it from a different way than a lot of people did. But I think there's really a lot of things you can bring here to different aspects of it. So do you guys have any questions? I can give you some more updates like on the clownfish and stuff like that too. And I do have some other thoughts as well. But do you guys have any other questions at this point? So I can see yeah, so like I said, this is I've tried a different system now, so I just tried to see if I could use the OBS software. 'Cause I really wanted to put a thumbnail up for this, but yeah, I think one thing too, and I didn't write this down, but the ecosystem aspect of it. I mean, the saltwater system you run, it's run a little bit differently. So you really have to focus. Not that you don't in freshwater. I want to be careful here, but it's really a hard. It's really I don't want. What do I want to say? It's you really have to make the whole ecosystem work, because water changes cost money in saltwater. So the instant ocean box of salt right now is probably about $45. That's probably on the low end, but if you get that $45 box of salt, you nearly need to you don't water change as much, basically. I mean, downstairs, the 245 gallon tank that I have downstairs, I've really not water changed that at all since I've had it in the fish room. I kind of let it run itself, and that's really different than you would run like I run my freshwater tanks differently than that. I run it all without a water change. So those are really my thoughts. I wanted to talk maybe for the first 15-20 minutes about that. I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update on the clownfish as well. The clownfish have hatched. So we've got all the clownfish hatching. That hatched, excuse me. The clownfish are doing well. I have converted them over to some dry food. So this is the dry food right here. This is called Top Dressed Otohime. It's made by a company called Reed Mariculture. This is the A. There's an A, B, C, D, and E. If you can see here, I'm going to turn it to the other side. If you can see, it's really a fine powder. So it's pretty nice. You just sprinkle it in the tank. The fry eat it. So I've seen probably about half a dozen fry or so. So I've seen them probably about 6. But they're doing pretty well. They're probably the size, maybe a little bit smaller than the call it like a guppy fry. They're just a tiny bit smaller than that, but they are getting a little bit easier to see, which has been nice. So, guys, let me know if the audio is still coming through and the video is coming through okay. And then I do plan on moving this to a different location eventually, maybe Thanksgiving weekend. I do kind of want to move this to a different spot where I can, a little bit better view than the table saw or the chop saw in the back. So, does anyone else have any thoughts? If you guys, feel free to give your opinion on this as well. I mean, what are the things that you've seen maybe in the freshwater side that I've maybe missed and that have gone over to the that you could use maybe in freshwater? I mean, I've heard of koi people using protein skimmers in koi ponds. That's not really a realm I've played in, but that's yeah. So that's really that's something I've seen done. I'm thinking of some other things too as we're going through here. Yeah, and I do, Jeremy catch sumps. Yes, very good point, Jason. So definitely the sumps. Saltwater does use, basically, you really don't run a system without a sump. And Joel from the Corvin Oskins channel uses sumps quite a bit in his freshwater setups, which I do like. I have a couple sumps running on the freshwater side. If I had more space, I would run more. But I've kind of substituted on some of my tanks the hang-on back as a sump. But yes, sumps for sure. It's just you increase the water flow. One of the things I want to do with my discus tank is I have right now I'm having really bad algae problems with that tank. So one of the things I really want to do with that is set up, really plant the sump and see if I can suck up a lot of the nutrients through the sump. Pretty much like growing catamorpha in your saltwater system. So yeah, Jason, that was a really good point. Gone Mad just joined us. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I have a feeling that Jeremy will end his stream, and then there'll be a bunch of people coming over from there, and then I may repeat some of this again. But yeah, so let me see what other things we can hit on. You know, one thing I do kind of have to say too is, like, actually, you know, watching things like African cichlids, the aggression level. I mean, I think, you know, keeping African cichlids and keeping a lot of the saltwater fish is kind of the same. I mean, it's really, you know, it's they kind of have the same behavior. Like, even with the butterfly fish that I've kept, where, you know, if you like if you put one too many in there, one will be kicked up to the top, kind of like a lot of the cichlids. You'll see one, you know, once the aggression kicks in, you'll see one to the top of the tank here, you know, and all the rest of them will be in the rock work. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing I can find kind of similar to where it's, yeah, where they get kind of kicked up and, you know, kind of managing the aggression, because a lot of the saltwater fish are pretty aggressive. I tend to have the best luck with the saltwater fish if I'm doing two angelfish, like the two Venusis angelfish I added downstairs into the tank downstairs, the 245 gallon. That fish, you know, those two fish I added together, and I've had no problems with them. Usually, a lot of times you have two angelfish together like that, especially like the Centropyge species, and they really get after each other. So, so yeah, it's very, you know, that's a very good thing. Where you know, maybe if you grew up as a cichlid keeper and you move into saltwater, that's something that you've learned how to manage aggression-wise. That's, you know, you can really, you know, really see that a lot more than someone who maybe isn't as experienced. So, you know, one thing that's kind of interesting too is this is the first winter in the fish barn. So, so far it's been getting down in the kind of the high 20s at night, and things are doing pretty good in here. I still have a little bit of insulation work to do up here with the windows. So I'm going to turn you guys around for a second. And so, as you can see right now, there's the windows going to the outside. This is facing towards the house. So I'm going to put insulation in here this weekend, probably. But you know, that's one thing as we get colder here. I'm in Michigan, so it is going to get quite a bit colder over the next couple months. But so far, it's been hanging in there pretty good. So knock on wood, we'll get through the first winter here with really not having too many problems. The snow hit here quite a bit quicker than anyone thought. So I have some cleanup I want to do outside too. There's a couple tanks that I've got where I want to really take them and put them in the house. So, or not in the house, but in the barn. So that's really kind of what's going on in the barn. I did have a little bit of a tank leak over the past last weekend, right before I went to the auction. So I did fix it. It actually ended up being a pipe. So I actually, you know, drained the tank and everything. So I moved a bunch of fish around in here. So that'll be an upcoming video pretty soon. Next, I am going to go again next week. One of the things I am going to try to do is I'm going to go through kind of basically what to do in a disaster. So not really a disaster, but like, say, you know, you have something happen like I did last week with the tank leaks, or you have the tank splits a seam, or, you know, I lose heat in the barn, for example. So I'm going to cover a lot of different aspects of that, from basically, you know, like extra, you know, you should have an extra pump on hand in some way, shape, or form mine probably will be running one of my auto water change systems, but if it came to it, I can grab the same pump, plug it in the system, and kind of no one's no worse for wear really until I can get another one. So we're gonna talk a little bit next week on that. I think that's gonna be next week's topic. Did anyone else go to any auctions or get any new fish this weekend? I did get quite a few. The video for that is going to come out Sunday. So I normally do it Thursday and Sunday. Thursday's video is going to be the aquascaping contest from the Aquatic Experience, and then a little bit of an update also on my 245-gallon system. Sorry, not the 245, the 75-gallon mud guppy tank that I aquascaped a couple weeks ago. So some of the plants have grown in pretty well on that, so it's gone pretty well. So I really don't have anything else to say. Do you guys have any questions? We've been going for about half an hour now or so, about 26 minutes. So you guys have any more questions? Anything you want to ask me about maybe clownfish breeding? I think most of you guys were here last week when I talked a lot about the clownfish. So those guys will be going towards settlement. Probably, I'm gauging it probably end of next week. So those guys will start really turning into real fish soon, which will be pretty cool to see. Yes, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up for this one. I realized that I went same time as Sergeant Tanks, so unfortunately, not a lot to say today. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you everyone who did come out, and we'll go ahead and end it here.